Hello, true crimerers. This is another true crime in a short amount of time. And this is the case of the San Diego State University shooting. Viewer discretion is advised. Yes, today's story takes us to the absolutely beautiful San Diego, California. If you did not know, San Diego, or the area, is where I grew up. I spent the first 18 years of my life in Oceanside, California, which is like 45 minutes north of San Diego. But back on August 15th, 1996, it was not such a pretty day in San Diego. San Diego State University has been around since 1897. That is back when I was in my late 90s. And it is a pretty darn popular school. At the university, they do have an engineering department, and it would be in the engineering building where this particular story takes place. 36-year-old Frederick Martin Davidson was an engineering student there at SDSU. He was considered a highly intelligent man, someone who actually was believed to have a ton of potential in the field of engineering, someone who was certainly going to make a name for himself. He also was not mentally well. It was the afternoon of August 15th, 1996, and Frederick had plans at just about 2 p.m. that afternoon in the engineering building to basically, defend his master's thesis. He had tried to present his master's thesis, sometime prior to this, and the thesis was rejected. So he then worked on it, fixed some things, and then they scheduled another meeting to present the thesis again. In this particular meeting were going to be 3 other engineering students who were there to support Frederick, and then there were 3 faculty members. 32-year-old assistant professor Chen Liang, 44-year-old associate professor Preston Lowry III, and 36-year-old associate professor Konstantinos Lorenzits. So, there were 7 total people in this particular room in the engineering department at the time. Frederick had apparently had a piece of paper with information on it with regards to a prospective job that he was going for in the field. This particular employer stated that he needed to have a successful master's thesis defense. And he was a little worried because his previous time had been rejected and he really needed this work. When he handed him the paper, Professor Liang takes it, looks at it, and then Frederick at the same time is now walking towards one of the walls, and on the wall is a screwed onto the wall like a first aid box. He opens the box, he takes something out of it, he takes something else out of it, closes the box, he turns around, and in his hand is now a 9mm handgun. He lifted the gun up, and he began to shoot towards the 3 professors. The 3 students immediately reacted, and they began to run from the classroom. They had also been screaming at the other people, the students and the faculty in the hallways, get out, evacuate immediately, there's a guy shooting. There was only one exit, by the way, in this entire room. Professor Liang was sitting at the table, and he was the first person shot by Frederick, and he was immediately killed right then and there. He had also been kind of just sort of blindly firing around where the professors were. He did hit the other 2 professors, but initially they didn't die. The other 2 who were shot were trying to get towards the exit, but Frederick was kind of already in the way, and so he began to fire more at both of them, and eventually he would shoot both of them dead. During the process of him, shooting them, he had chased them around, and he had to reload his clip. Because the other items he pulled from the first aid box was another clip. And so he reloaded, and he was hunting these professors, basically. The 3 students he didn't seem to give 2 craps about. Later on, he would say he wasn't mad at them. There was no animosity towards the students, and they were never part of the plan. He never intended to shoot them. That he only intended to shoot the 3 professors. When all 3 of the professors were dead, Frederick picks up a phone nearby and calls 911 and reports himself. He says basically there is a murder-suicide because he intended to end his own life. When police arrive, Frederick is sitting in the hallway with the gun still in his hand, and he is crying. Apparently he can't get himself to end his own life, so I think he wanted the cops to do it. But they didn't. They were able to basically safely apprehend him and put him in cuffs. Initially, when this story broke, it was believed that his motive behind this attack was that he didn't want to go through another rejection with his thesis. So he basically was just going to kill the professors because he knew he'd be rejected. However, later on, it would be proven that Professor Liang, the one he seemed to have the most animosity towards, he had told other professors, and I think another student or something like that, that the revised thesis that Frederick was going to present was excellent, and that he likely was going to approve this thesis, as were the other 2 professors, because they'd already kind of gotten a peek at it. And it sounded like they were all on board with it. He just had to present it, and then they would have voted, and then it would have been fine. It's not known if Frederick really knew that ahead of time or not, but ultimately what they would kind of go back to his motive was the fact that he had a lot of animosity just in general towards Professor Liang, because I guess the professor had made him stay behind at school a lot to do a lot of work in the classroom with him, and it was a lot of work that I guess didn't even apply to his thesis. It didn't apply to what he was going there to school for. Basically, Frederick he had described it as like this annoying busy work that Professor Liang always made him do, and he really kind of just had a grudge against him for doing it. Apparently, Professor Lowry and Professor Lorenzitz, I guess they had found out that Frederick had at one point cheated on some schoolwork, or he was using someone else's work to kind of do his own. So apparently he had some sort of like animosity towards them as well. The overall motive seemed to be kind of vague and not definitively figured out, but there was enough to basically state, he intended to do this. I mean, he hid a 9mm handgun plus extra ammunition in this first aid box in the classroom, and then he just sort of calmly walked over there, grabbed it all out, and began firing. So obviously this was a premeditated thing, and so he had his reasons. On July 19th, 1997, he would finally plead guilty under a deal made by the prosecution. He initially, I guess, planned to plead not guilty based on insanity, but they worked away from that. And he pled guilty to avoid the death penalty, because that's what they would have gone for. And he ended up getting 3 consecutive life sentences without parole. And then, many years later, like a decade or so later, he tried filing for clemency, which was kind of odd because the whole plea agreement he had signed in 1997 stated that he was guilty and that he would not pursue any further appeals or anything like that, that he was guilty, 3 life sentences, and that was the end of them. So people were very confused by why he was suddenly trying to file for clemency. No one knew why, because he was guilty, there was no questions about it, he did it, but he was denied. So I guess he just wanted to try to get out. There was no chance he was ever going to, but I guess A for effort, bud. But he is now rotting away in a prison cell. I couldn't think of a more beautiful place that you don't get to see anymore. San Diego. But that's it for this case. True crime Rooney. Dooney, 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 ding, ding, dong, dong, dongs. God, dongs are always on my mind. Anyway, if you are trip, falling, stumbling face first into this video, hey, hi, I'm Mike. I tell true crime stories, of course. I tell 4 of them here on YouTube a week. I tell 1 on Instagram, 1 on Facebook, and a few on TikTok throughout the week. All of my socials are in the description below. They're also in the link tree, which is in the description below, for easy clickage to get to things. Words are hard. So, subscribe here. Yeah, like the video. Follow me everywhere if you want to. Or don't. It's up to you. Please do. But don't. It's fine. Whatever. I won't cry. And that's it for this video. So... Oh my god, I just realized this entire video... Daemon Targaryen was on his back. What a creep. On his back for his own niece, you know what I mean? No, but it's accurate. He bangs his own niece. So... Where am I going with this? I don't know. Daemon, just... God bless it. Ugh. I gotta fix him, you guys. So we'll see you later. Get over here, you coot.